G'day. There's a dinner party question that's doing the rounds in some circles. If you had absolute power to do one thing to change the world, what would that one thing be? Now, for me, it's been obvious to me now for a number of years that we have a crisis of trust in our world. And without trust, society doesn't really function. We've got lots of these problems and everyone's arguing. No one trusts anybody. And while we're in that situation, nothing happens. Except that those who've got more power than others can push things around to their satisfaction to some degree. Now, trust, when I answered that question, I came up with, well, if I could change one thing in this world, it would be that there was greater trust. Obvious question, but where does trust come from? And I think it comes from ethics. If I think that you're an ethical person and you think that I'm an ethical person, in that we're both trying to be ethical, because you can always debate what is and what isn't ethical. But if I'm confident you're at least trying to be ethical, and likewise, you feel the same way about me, when some kind of conflict arises between us, we can discuss it because we trust each other. And maybe we can work it out, maybe not. But it doesn't immediately descend into hostility between us. When trust is broken, people get very angry. When you trust somebody and they let you down, you get very angry about it. And it can damage you when someone you rely on, someone that you rely on deeply, and it turns out that you can't trust them. It's it's beyond disappointing. So, ethics. Now, I don't teach any philosophy in these videos. And there's a reason for that. It's because I actually trust people, deeply trust people, that given their druthers, they'd rather do things nicely. I asked myself the next question. Well, okay, trust relies on ethics. Where does ethics come from? Now, there's all kinds of rulebook ethics out there. Just about every religion's got its commandments, for want of a better word. I actually think it's simpler than that. I think that ethics comes from appreciating things. It's when you appreciate something, you don't want to see any harm come to it. You want to protect it. And that appreciation for things, that's at the heart of what I think meditation's all about. Now, when I offer my thoughts about meditation, I emphasize the emotional component of our experience. And that's for very good reason too, in my opinion, because it's our emotional connection to life that makes life meaningful, makes life pleasant. If we had no emotional connection, if life didn't make us feel things, it'd be difficult to comprehend where the pleasure would be, where the happiness would come from. And I trust people that if they really do connect with life, then automatically they start to appreciate things. They start to value things. And their ethics grows naturally without anybody telling anybody else what is and what isn't ethical. It's kind of self-evident. You appreciate something and you want to protect it. So when I look at why there's no trust in this world, or why it's so diminished, I think it's because people actually are not emotionally connected to life. They're somehow disconnected. And the joy of life isn't there, and the appreciation of it isn't there. And there's no value. People can betray each other's trust. Well, you can only do that if you don't value the other person. If you don't value them, it's because you don't appreciate them. And I think that's our great challenge as a creature, as people, as a civilization. We've got a lot of things, but we've got this idea that everything is disposable. Don't have to buy the good stuff. Just buy some cheap shit, and when it breaks, go and replace it. And there's an attitude that perhaps extends towards other people. So, trust. I think we have a crisis in trust. And it's one of the reasons I started teaching this in this channel, teaching about meditation. Because I see that from my perspective, and maybe you disagree, but from my perspective, I think that we're in the pickle that we're in as a civilization simply because somehow or other our capacity for appreciating has become degraded. And the way back to that is to rediscover the emotional connection to life. And that's at the heart of how I present meditation. It's not some kind of escapism. It's a journey back to reality. What's the point of being alive if you don't appreciate it? And if you are connected to it emotionally, there's a lot to appreciate. So ethics. I think ethics is based upon appreciating, the capacity to appreciate. And the more ethical you become as an individual, the more trustworthy you become, and just that little bit better becomes the world. That's how I see things anyway. So, see you later.